we're going to be talking about Bank of America and Merrill Lynch. As many of you may have noticed, if you're a Bank of America customer, Merrill Lynch and Bank of America are in some way joined. And I think Maxfield can give us a little bit more background on exactly how they came to be together, right?
That's right. Yeah. So Bank of America purchased Merrill Lynch in September in 2008. And here, just to kind of set the scene a little bit more, one of the things we've seen in the 8 years since the financial crisis is that some banks have gone and basically recovered and even actually thrived as a result of the financial crisis. Wells Fargo is a perfect example of that, right? I mean, it's more than doubled in size. It's making more money than it's ever made before. And even in this tough interest rate environment, I mean, Wells Fargo is such an incredibly vibrant and viable business model that you wouldn't even guess that it had just survived the financial crisis. JP Morgan Chase, it's doing pretty well too. But Bank of America is really, really struggling. And mind you that this is the nation's second largest bank. So it's a really important bank for the United States. So the question is why is it struggling? And one of the reasons it seems to be struggling is because of the acquisition of Merrill Lynch that it did in September of 2008, really in the trough of the financial crisis over a very fast weekend. It was the same exact weekend that Lehman Brothers failed, that the Treasury Department and the Federal Reserve approached Bank of America to see if they'd be willing to basically just buy Merrill Lynch over the course of a weekend. And that's what they did. They paid something like $50 billion for Merrill Lynch. But the thing that's important to keep in mind in all of this is that that happened really before the post-crisis regulatory regime kind of changed the name of the game for banks.
Yeah, and I think what listeners have to understand too is that people were worried about a domino effect, just like they were worried about Vietnam and communists with a domino effect. They were worried about banks. So Lehman Brothers failed, and then they were convinced that the banks, like from smallest to largest, would fail one right after the other, which is why the federal government stepped in and asked Bank of America, "Hey, do you want to buy Merrill Lynch before it fails?"
That's right. I mean, if we go back in time to 2008, so in March of that year is when the Treasury Department basically approached, not basically, I mean, they directly approached JP Morgan Chase to say, look, can you guys step in and save Bear Stearns? Well, Bear Stearns was the fifth largest investment bank. Lehman Brothers was the fourth largest. And then Merrill Lynch was the third largest. Then you had Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs. And to Gabby's point, it just looked like that's the way the dominoes were tumbling. You had Bear fall basically in March. You had Lehman fall in September. And the thought was that if you didn't draw the line somewhere, all five of them would go. And then that would just be that would cause a global catastrophe.
What do you think? Do you think Merrill Lynch actually would have failed if Bank of America hadn't bought them up?
That's a great question. Gabby, I got to be honest, that's an amazing question. So let me answer it this way. So there are some banks out there, JP Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo in particular, who basically said, look, we did not need the federal government to step in to save us. And to a certain extent, that is right. Because Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase had plenty of liquidity, had plenty of capital. They were fine as institutions. It was really just a handful of other commercial banks that were struggling, and then all the investment banks. But had the government not stepped in and basically backstopped the entire credit market in the United States, every single bank was at threat of failure. Because if JP Morgan Chase may have been fine, but all of its counterparties that owed JP Morgan Chase money, and when one counterparty owes another counterparty money, that's an asset to the company that the money is owed. So basically, JP Morgan Chase's assets could have been decimated, not because of JP Morgan Chase, but because of all its counterparties failed. So the fact of the matter is, yes, I think there's an argument that if the government didn't step in, not only would have Merrill Lynch failed, but even the biggest and soundest financial organizations in the country would have been a threat of failure.